Welcome to the show. You're listening to So Here's the Thing podcast. A podcast covering various topics that can cover just about any topic. Today's episode is going to cover from a various topics playlist. This playlist is where we review and discuss a topic in greater detail. Many people are auditorial readers and learners, and this review is to help them discover topics that are done well audibly. Today's episode is covering cybercrimes against children. Have a seat. These words are often spoken by Chris Hansen on Dateline's NBC's To Catch a Predator. It gave the viewer an inside look at those targeting children for sexual purposes, allowing the viewer and the audience to see what those type of people will say and do to get with a child. This show aired from 2004 to 2007. When the last episode aired and the TV crews stopped filming and went away, the crime and the victimization continued. The predators and those out there to have sexual relations with children are still out there. And in 2020, we would see a rise in the number of cases, not only in the US but across the world. Child sexual exploitation is closely linked to human trafficking and child abuse images, often referred to as child porn. The suspects in these crimes can spend weeks or even months stalking the victims online, grooming them slowly, before they are taken and eventually forced to perform sexual acts as trapped victims in human smuggling rings. Predators will convince the victims to take images of themselves in compromised positions and at various stages of undress, and threaten to spread these images out if the victim does not cooperate with the suspect. In 2012, I began working in the child abuse crimes with the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force here in Oklahoma. I had contact with some of the disturbing people, several of whom lived next door to unsuspecting families. Before the use of technologies, these perpetrators would have to go into public, to parks and locations, and would be in view of people. Now, they can target children from the comfort of their own homes. In 2020, the National Center of Missing and Exploiting Children, also known as NCMEC, reported that 21.7 million reports came in on tip line of children exploitation and abuse. That is a 97.5% increase more than what was reported in 2019. This large increase of cases is being linked to the fact that many people were stuck at home. This is including children, due to the worldwide pandemic. And these children were on the internet more due to school and boredom. This gave perpetrators and predators ample time to contact with the victim due to them also being at home. Often parents will allow the child access to the internet with minimal to no supervision. Data provided by the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children show that of the 21.7 million reports, that 21.4 million of these reported tips came from electronic service providers. The National Center of Missing and Exploiting Children suggests that parents be involved in their child's online life and activities in order to limit the possibility of them being enticed and groomed online. While there are local agents and departments that investigate computer crimes and human trafficking, the federal agency that investigates these crimes in the U.S. is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. In 2020, the Homeland Security Investigations Division was able to rescue 1,012 child age victims from exploitation, and arrest 3,712 suspects involved in human trafficking. According to the Cybercrime and Digital Forensics textbook, child pornography is defined as the depiction of sexual or sexualized physical abuse of children under the age of 16 or who appear to be less than 16 that would offend a reasonable adult. The state of Oklahoma and the federal law, on the other hand, Both define that child abuse images or child porn is defined as images taken of those in sexual nature of any child under the age of 18. These images are often created now by predators who target the child by online means and groom them. This grooming process makes the act of sexual behavior something that is not strange to the child. This is done through social manipulation, convincing the child that the predator cares for the child and possibly loves them, making for the victim to trust the suspect. The suspect will stalk the child online, on social media, and learn about them and their habits, who their friends are, their likes, their dislikes, and what their faults are. The suspects often target those with low self-esteem. The perpetrators may never contact the victim until it escalates further, following the victim both online and where they are to show up unexpectedly and uninvited by the victim. Making copies of photos the victim takes and posts, they often live in a fantasy of what is real with the victim and what they want to be real. Stalking was originally an in-person type of crime, and it still is in many cases. The victim is watched and followed before suddenly contacted by the suspect, and of which the harassment gets worse. Online stalking is not much different, with the exception that it can progress longer and be even more unseen. The suspects can get information about the victim following them online. This is commonly easy, with many people posting everything about their life online for the world to read. A better way to address this issue is to limit what is posted and who is befriended online. Not always is the victim of stalking and the criminal unknown to each other. They may be ex-partners, old flames, or even current ones. The suspects in these types of events of stalking and cyberstalking will often pursue the victim endlessly, showing up at a place that is tagged in a photo, tracking the victim without their knowledge, and monitoring the screen with apps and spyware to see what the victim is doing and who they are speaking with can occur. This may happen for many days, weeks, or years without the victim knowing it is happening. Cyberstalking can progress into physical stalking as well, or be in conjunction with it at the same time. Once the suspect convinces the child to take and make child pornography, often referred to as child abuse images of themselves or of siblings, and send them to the suspect will often try to convince the victim to meet them. They will promise a number of things, but if the child resists meeting the suspect in person, the suspect will often use these images of the child as a threat, telling the victim if they do not do as they are told, they will release the images to family, friends, and the world. This is to force compliance from the victim. The suspect will often meet the child and sexually assault them. Sometimes this victim is taken and forced into human trafficking. Human trafficking is not some far-off thing. It happens in the U.S. every hour of every day. The suspect will start by getting the victim manipulated into performing sex acts for them for money, and start the process of control. The suspect will use various online means, including sites such as Craigslist or City Hookups, or even the dark web, to set up meetings for clients. They use emojis to indicate various things the victim will perform, or even allude to the age of the victim by them. They can vet the client to make sure that they are not law enforcement. While not every prostitute is a controlled victim, they are all part of human trafficking. In 2000, the U.S. Congress passed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, or TVPA. This act defined both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Sex trafficking is the recruiting, transporting, harboring, or obtaining of a person for the purpose of commercial sex acts in which the commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, coercion, or in which the person forced to perform such an act is under the age of 18. Sex trade can be broken down into various levels. Street level, such as prostitution, is where the victim is out on the street and in a more traditional thought of how prostitution works. Internet-based, such as pornographic websites and ads. Brothels are businesses that have been found in all 50 states and dealing with both minors and adult victims. When a person is forced to perform a sex act for profit, this is sex trafficking. A minor under 18 conducting sex acts, no matter the consent, is considered a victim of human trafficking. Sex tourism is when the victim is brought in at events or to a city or by the use of escort sites. Bonded labor is when the victim is told they owe the suspect money for bringing them here to the U.S., providing essential items, food, water, and the victim must pay them back, but they're never able to. Suspects involved in human trafficking may have victims make pornographic images. Research shows that a strong connection between pornographic images and human trafficking. The victim's social media changes might include activity increase with posts, be more secretive with family and friends, have deleted images and messages. The victim might post pictures of previously unaffordable items, such as expensive electronics or vehicles. While these crimes of child exploitation and sex workers are seen with outside influence in many cases, victims may be willing to participate at first in the crime. When a young couple are dating, often they communicate with cell phones and through technology. This might be the exchange of child abuse images. Often this is called sexting, and is something many youth find to be a normal thing. It still constitutes a crime of manufacturing, possession, and distribution of child pornography images. After these photos or videos are sent from the victim has no control of who can see or who has the photos. If the same couple breaks up, the receiver of the image might decide to commit what is called revenge porn, and that is taking the image and sending it out or posting online to humiliate the victim. Also, what can result from this is cyberbullying, where the victim is targeted by known and unknown persons and ridiculed. This may go on without any responsible adult knowing of the bullying until it's too late into the attacks. There are other groups and efforts out there to prevent and educate the public of the dangers of online crimes and predators. The Demand Project is a nonprofit group whose mission is to direct their efforts, resources, and energy eradication of sexual exploitation, with an emphasis on the sexual exploitation of children, whether they are victims of trafficking, forced prostitution, online enticement, or child pornography. Their mission is to end all sex crimes by targeting the demand side of the sexual exploitation, to take away the demand, which is the predators. The Demand Project is active in the community with the strive to prevent crime through education of both parents and children, and to help in the rescue of victims, prosecution of suspects, and restoration of families. I feel the best way to combat cybercrimes is limiting the knowledge that is out there in the world about myself and those I care about. Having a private setting on a social media at a higher standard than is just the basic. Not adding everyone in the world, but limiting to my friends that I know in person can help limit my vulnerability. Having parents that are a part of a child's life and has an open and honest conversation about the dangers and threats that are out there on the internet will help the child prepare for them being contacted, for it is not a matter of if they are contacted, but when. Parents have to learn the application the child is using and how to secure them further. Using phone monitoring apps can help the parent watch out for the child. It is not that you can't trust your child, they can't trust those that want to hurt the child. Online access can be a great tool, but it can also be a great pain as well. People need to understand that once it's out there on the internet, it is out there forever. It can never be taken back. It is like a digital bullet. Once fired, it's gone. If you wouldn't want your grandma to see it, then you shouldn't be posting it or sharing it. While there are dangers of using the internet can be a wonderful thing and help educate children further than what they can learn in school. This message is not to scare anyone. It's to help educate, help people be aware of those dangers that are out there, that are faced every day, and that are fought by dedicated people. I'm hoping this podcast reaches as many as it can. The sources for the data and information will be linked in the description. I will also be tagging the Demand Project along with other pertinent information. If you suspect someone of being a victim of human trafficking or child exploitation in any fashion, make a report. A false report is better than a victim being ignored.